Hi everyone, how are you? Good day to you. Today, we are going to discuss about uh, metadata and how metadata is important in the process of managing electronic records or digital records. So, in the computer system, metadata is an important element by which we can do and trace and identify and verify whatever things are done at the back end process of the computer system. So metadata is embedded within the system of computer or whatever the system is in such a way that we can do audit trail. When we can do audit trail, we can verify who accessed the record in this manner, who edit the record in this manner, who transfer the record, who create that records, because metadata exists together with the records, with the file, with the folder, with the transaction. By having the metadata, we will be able to verify and authenticate uh, uh, the reliability and validity of the electronic records. By definition, metadata is data about data. In a very simplest manner, I give you one example. If I want to mention the words Kuala Lumpur, it is quite a long words. Though it is simple, two words, Kuala Lumpur, which is the capital city of Malaysia. But in the computer system, whenever we buy tickets, flight tickets, we don't use the words Kuala Lumpur. We create abbreviation or prefix to the name or to the words Kuala Lumpur into KUL. So this example indicate that KUL is data about another data, which is known as an abstraction of the data. At the same time, in this manner, KUL is a meaningful data describing another discrete data object, which is Kuala Lumpur is the data object, but it is known as KUL. Similarly, in our day-to-day operation, we use prefix or short abbreviation to describe about something which is much bigger, much longer. So what happened is that in the computer system in which we manage electronic records or digital record, there is a relationship between data object and the metadata. Why? Because metadata would be able to describe functionally identical to the relationship between a book and its library catalog record, in which, as you may understand, the catalog record of the library describe about a book. Without looking to the book, we just look into the library catalog record, which is the metadata of that particular book. Short information, very brief but completely describing about data object. In other words, it is also known as structured description of an object. Okay, so there are few types of metadata. There is administrative metadata, which is used in managing and administering information resource. For example, acquisition information, right and reproduction tracking, documentation of legal access, location information, selection criteria for digitization, as well as version control for the purpose of administrative works of a particular description of electronic records or digital records. Next is descriptive metadata, which is used to describe or identify information resources. Normally, it is a manual metadata created by people. Say, for example, as I said just now, catalog records, finding aid or specialized index, hyperlink resources between resources, annotation by users. So this is a short notes, which is performing the role and function as descriptive metadata. Next is metadata is also used and known as another type of it is preservation metadata. Preservation metadata is those metadata related to the preservation management of information resources. For example, documentation of physical condition of resources, documentation of action taken to preserve physical version of resources, for example, data refreshing and migration. Which is very much common. Another type of metadata is technical metadata, which is metadata related to how a system function or metadata behave. In a simplest manner, this technical metadata is where we look into audit trail as well as technical information of a particular transaction or system. For example, file format and compression scheme. Those are things that constitute technical metadata. Another example, many more example is that hardware and software documentation, digitization information like formats, compression ratio, scaling routine, tracking of system response time, for example, authentication and security data like encryption keys and password. This is the main source of another type of metadata. This is the main source of audit trail is use metadata, which is metadata related to the level and type of user information resources. For example, exhibition record, use and user tracking, content reuse and multi-versioning information. How do we build up metadata? We can build up metadata by attribute and characteristic. The source of metadata attribute and characteristic could be internal metadata, which is normally generated by creating agent for an information object at the time when it is first created or digitized. For example, file names and header information, as well as directory structures, file format, JPEG, MPEG, MP4, MP3, TXT, XLS, and so on and so forth, as well as compression scheme. This is attribute and characteristic by which metadata is derived. Another source of metadata is that external metadata, which is normally relating to an information object that is later or that is created later, often by someone other than the original creator of that particular data object. For example, the library catalog record just now, in which when we do registration of the books, of the new book in the library, we create catalog record. This is what I mean by created later by someone other than the original creator. Rights and other legal information is also external metadata. What about the methods of how metadata is created? Normally, in the computer system, there is an automatic metadata which is generated by a computer based on keyword index, user transaction logs, or manual metadata created by people. For example, as I mentioned just now, library catalog records as well as Dublin core metadata. So what happened is that this metadata is the one which control the action or whatever happened to a particular digital record being created being used, being saved, or being stored, or being transferred, or being accessed, or being modified, or being edited within the computer system. And we in record in the management of digital records, we really need metadata, and the combination of administrative, technical, use metadata, and so on and so forth just now form what we call as record keeping metadata, which will ensure the authenticity, validity, reliability of the digital records being created within the computer system. So, uh, based on this metadata, we can track who does what. We can track who transfer what. We can track who access what. We can also track who modify what. By having this, we would be able to ensure that the digital records created remain intact. Of course, we cannot stop people from, say, for example, modifying certain records, but we can ensure that the system revert back to the original state of that particular digital record prior to the changes being made. By doing this, we can ensure that what kind of modification has been made, and at the same time this will allow us to use digital record as a source of evidence in this manner. So that is all about record keeping metadata as well as metadata. For us, we need record keeping metadata embedded in the system that manage digital record for the purpose of authenticating it, for the purpose of validating it, for use as an evidence within the business transaction. See you again. Thank you. Bye bye.